Dungeons & Dragons has been around since 1974 and now proudly claims the top of every 2024 book that it is the world's greatest role-playing game. While there's plenty of debate that being made about that, with games like Pathfinder or Vampire the Masquerade much more up other people's speed, what stuck out to me was the focus on the world's best role-playing game. World as in all of the world? It's no secret that D&D takes inspiration from various sources. Tolkien is the most obvious one, so obvious that he actually got a lawsuit in 1977 over the concept of hobbits and ents, which became halflings and trents. There's also the obvious inspiration from Greek mythology, both in the Monster Manual, which creatures like Chimera and the Medusa, but also in the setting Mythic Odysseys of Theros, it's just Greece. This is just Greek. They just slapped Greek mythology into a book and called it a day. Extra fun fact, Theros was actually a Magic the Gathering setting first, but that is an entirely different video. There's also an obvious inspiration from other cultures that you can see in the Monster Manual. It can be argued the concept of giants in the text were inspired by Greek, Norse, or Celtic mythology. Centaurs from Greek myth, various fae from Celtic mythology, satyrs from Greek mythology. There were some monsters as well from parts outside of Europe, such as the Yeti, the Sphinx, the Rakasha.
She a baddie, she knows she a 10. She a baddie with her baddie friend.
Though the overall majority of creatures with counterparts outside of Dungeons & Dragons are inspired by Greece, inspired by Tolkien, inspired by Celtic mythology, or inspired by Norse mythology, which is fine, until you consider that there are about 33 monsters either made by Tolkien or this section of Europe versus a generous 16 monsters, at max 20, because obviously I don't know every single monster and its origins, from any other part of the world, especially when 4 of those are sphinxes. The cards seem a little stacked. I didn't include creatures that can be seen as Christian, like a lot of creatures from the Hells, or dragons, since dragons are more of a universal concept, and they did take steps in the new Dragon Delves anthology to use different shape language to show off different cultures, such as the gold dragon now having a long serpentine body reminiscent of Chinese dragons. This isn't something new for fantasy, though. Fantasy as a genre tends to be focused on whiteness, with titles like Game of Thrones and Harry Potter, all medievalist European worlds. These worlds, predominantly populated by white people, are saved by white heroes, cast whiteness as pervasive, yet leave it unnamed and uninterrogated. Alongside events like the first black author, Nnedi Okorafor, to get the World Fantasy Award in 2011, being presented H.P. Lovecraft's Head, an iconic artist, but also an iconic racist, as proof by his general opinion on black people, and also the fact that he named his cat literally a slur. This was a choice made by the World Fantasy Organization. However, like D&D, changes were made. The World Fantasy Award now looks like this really cool tree, and it's been like that for 10 years now. This is objectively a good thing. Fantasy shouldn't be a Eurocentric genre. There are plenty of amazing people of color artists and equally as amazing people of color fans of the genre. Everyone should be able to see things that represent them in the genre, especially if it's so white focused and white people have gotten so much representation for such a long time. So, if Dungeons & Dragons claims to be the world's greatest role-playing game, why not try to include more worldly monsters to your Dungeons & Dragons game? Here are a few creatures that I've made for you to use in your game. These stat blocks will be available to download for free on my Ko-fi in the description, and you can slap these homebrew monsters into your world in various different ways.
Sent on a quest to hunt down a monster that has been terrorizing local villagers, your party sets out into the rainforest to capture and kill the beast. They follow backward-facing footsteps, deeper and deeper into the thick foliage. As your party travels through the dense tropical rainforest, a foul smell wafts into the air, alerting your party to something amidst the tightly packed trees. Your party dives behind cover, carefully surveying the area as they hear the distant cries of an unknown animal. As the ground starts to shake, the foul smell becomes stronger and stronger, threatening to knock out members of your party. Then they see it, a large, hairy beast with a massive gaping maw on its stomach. Its large claws drag against the forest floor as it hunts for new prey. its single eye falling on your less than stealthy paladin. It charges towards you with a battle cry.
The Mapinguari is a folk creature from the Amazon rainforest. Though modernly inspired by prehistoric animals like ground sloths, original depictions show this creature as a Bigfoot-like ape monster. This cannot be cited to one tribe in the Amazon rainforest, but instead can be cited to multiple tribes that have different names up from it, such as Kepilobo, Madipalo, Pidegrata, Juma, or simply Bicho, beast. Here is the stat block I've made for it. The Mapinguari is a large monstrosity with a chaotic neutral temperament. Its armor class is 14, with hit points, I think, fairly 262, with a speed of 20. For its strength, I gave it a +7, taking inspiration from the Cyclops stat block, but in return, I made its dex a -1 with a constitution of 20. Its intelligence is 14, its wisdom is 10, and its charisma is 6, because it's stinky and gross. It has a +9 to strength saving throws and a +9 to athletics with a passive perception of 10. I put it at a challenge rating of 6, because as I said, it's inspired by the Cyclops stat block a little bit. But I also gave it sunlight sensitivity, because if it's supposed to be a giant ground sloth, it's very likely that this thing would not be able to see very well in the sun. Fun fact about sloths, they cannot see in the sun. They'll be blinded during the day and can only see in dim light. This is also why I did not include dark vision. So put this fight at the correct time, and it can be a very ferocious monster. I also gave it keen hearing and smell, and the new custom ability, Offensive Odor. Any creature hostile to the Mapinguari that starts its turn within 10 feet of it must make a DC Constitution 12 saving throw, unless the creature is incapacitated. On a failed save, the creature suffers disadvantage on all attacks until the start of its next turn. If a creature's saving throw is successful, this effect does not take place. This is a fun way to nerf your fighters and barbarians while still giving your spellcasters plenty of room to shine. This creature also has a multi-attack. It does 2 claw attacks with a +9 to hit that do 3d12 bludgeoning damage. And then I gave it something very fun. An important fact about the Mapinguari is that it's often depicted with a giant stomach on its belly. So I decided a fun way to represent this in the game would be to give it the swallow attack. Very few creatures in D&D have the swallow attack, and frankly, I think more creatures in D&D should have the swallow attack. I think eating your party members is really fun and cool. It has +7 to hit, and the Mapinguari has to be grappling the creature before it can actually do the swallow. But if a swallow is successful, it does 2d10 piercing damage, the target is swallowed, and the grapple ends. The swallowed target is blinded and restrained. It has total cover against attacks and other effects outside of the Mapinguari, and takes 3d6 acid damage at the start of each of the Mapinguari's turns. The Mapinguari can only have one target swallowed at a time. This was just kind of taken from other creatures that already have the swallow ability. I didn't change much about it, I more just slapped it on this monster. A fun way to include this in your game would be to run into it during sunset or sunrise, or otherwise in a dim shaded area like a grove. Give your players some hint about the sunlight sensitivity prior to the fight, so the strong creature can be properly challenged, since a spell like daylight or anything else that emits a bright light can blind the creature and make it a little bit more balanced if everyone is rolling at disadvantage for attack rolls instead of just your fighter and barbarian.
Your party takes a moment to take a short rest by the river. They dip their water skins into the fresh, clean water and allow their horses to drink too. As you all begin to settle down and set up for a temporary camp, you watch as your halfling party member is grabbed and dragged into the water of the river. You all dive into the water after him. Then you see a horrible beast clutching your friend, tempting to drown them.
The bunyip comes from Aboriginal tribes in southeastern Australia, and its name varies, once again, just like the Mapinguari, from tribe to tribe, along with its appearance. The most common description that I was able to find was that it was like a seal-like dog, so I decided to take inspiration from the eelhound stat block from Kobold Press. My bunyip is a medium fiend. I specifically gave it the fiend category because its name literally translates to devil or evil spirit, so I thought it was fitting for it to be a fiend. It's chaotic evil, and has an armor class of 15 and hit points of 77 with a walking speed of 20 feet and a swim speed of 50 feet. I decided to nerf its walking speed a little bit because often when this creature is described, it's described as primarily just being on water, though it does have the ability to enter on land. I don't think, especially with the other ability that I put on this stat sheet, that it would be smart to shove this thing randomly on land, but I wanted it to still be possible with there being an obvious preference of which one you're supposed to do. Its strength is 3, its dex is 4, its constitution is 1, its intelligence is +4, its wisdom is +1, but its charisma, once again, -1. These guys are very charming. With a dark vision of 60 feet and a passive perception of 13, it understands Aquean and Infernal. Aquean I obviously tossed in because this is like an underwater spirit, while Infernal I added to match with the devil concept. It's amphibious, it can breathe both air and water, so like a seal, it's not very useful outside of water. And I gave it the Slithering Bite attack from the Eelhound because it felt fitting with the mythology of the Bunyip. The Bunyip primarily lurks in bodies of water and then attacks women and children, drowning them. So, having something that allows you to grab a player and try to drown it in the water, I think makes for an interesting fight. Alongside that, I added Aquatic Body, so it would be able to sneak up on players. Like the Mimic, while the Bunyip remains motionless, it is indistinguishable from the rest of the body of water that it's in. Its attack is pretty simple, no multi-attack, just a bite. But if it bites you, you're grappled with an escape of a DC 14 either acrobatics or athletics check.
It's night. The sky pitch black with clouds covering up any stars or moonlight. Your party stares at the battlefield, remains of a long forgotten war clinging to its landscapes, fallen and torn banners, armor still worn by the skeletons underneath, blades half buried in the ground. The experience is sombering, and as you walk through the remains you see bodies clearly not of soldiers, but of women, children, casualties in the war. Just another body added to the pile. As the dread overtakes you, beneath your feet you can see the earth start to tremble. It's a slight tremor at first, but quickly the entire earth is shaking. The remains on the battlefield begin to jog across the ground, fueled by malice, as you are unable to do anything but watch. A shiver runs down your spine as you see it start to rise on the horizon. A massive skeleton, with its glowing eyes set on your party. You hear its bones rattle as the fear becomes palpable. The villain you have been hunting for weeks laughs upon its shoulders, for it has just made the perfect servant.
The Gashadokuro is a yokai from Japan, a massive skeleton made up of the bodies of people who either died during a war or died during a famine. These vengeful spirits form together to create the Gashadokuro, a monster that is considered largely invincible. It hunts during the hours of 2 a.m., and despite not needing to eat, it seeks to consume as many people as it can during this hour. I set up this stat block as one that your party is supposed to lose. It's based slightly of a mix between the Lich stat block and the Draco Lich stat block, both of which are very powerful final boss stat blocks. First off, I'll start to say I am genuinely shocked that Giant Skeleton isn't already a monster in D&D, with all of the creatures that are under the undead grouping, that they just haven't decided, what if we just made Skeleton but big? This creature is meant to be one that your party can't fight / needs to fight at very, very, very high level. This creature is a great plot hook / really, really cool villain servant. It is incredibly difficult to kill. The Gashadokuro is a gargantuan undead and is chaotic evil. Its armor class is 22 and it has 378 hit points with a speed of 30 feet. Its strength is +0, but its dex is +5. Its constitution is +3, its intelligence is -1, its wisdom is +2, and its charisma is +3. It has a dexterity saving throw of 13, an intelligence saving throw of 6, a wisdom saving throw of 10, and a charisma saving throw of 11. It has a +11 in intimidation, and ironically, and this will be explained later on, it has a +13 in stealth. It is only vulnerable to radiant damage, and it resists acid, cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, and thunder. It is immune, like many undead, to poison. It is also immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. It is immune to the blinded, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed, and poisoned condition. It has a dark vision of 120 feet and a passive perception of 12. It understands all languages but cannot speak any language, and I mark this reasonably as a challenge rating of 25. It has a legendary resistance like the creatures that I based it off of, and it has turn resistance like the Lich. It also has a very fun feature which I took from the Imp stat block. I also gave it invisibility. This creature can magically turn invisible until it attacks or casts a spell, or until its concentration ends, and the equipment that it's holding also becomes invisible with it. I decided to add this because from multiple sources that I read, despite it being a giant building-sized skeleton and or bigger than building-sized skeleton, it is incredibly stealthy and also can turn invisible / normal people can't see it, which I thought was really funny for a creature that I was going to base off of a Lich and a Draco Lich stat block. The Gashadokro's weapons are magical. It has Rampage, allowing it, when it reduces a creature to 0 hit points, to take a bonus action to move half its speed and make a bite attack. Though, key point, it does have some weaknesses. It has sunlight sensitivity. While in sunlight, the Gashadokuro disadvantage on attack rolls, as well as wisdom. But the key note is that this creature is only supposed to appear at 2 in the morning, as we see with the time limit feature. The Gashadokuro can only exist for an hour at a time, and only exist during night. When the hour has passed, the Gashadokuro temporarily disappears until the next evening. This both gives a time limit on the fight, which D&D fights definitely don't last an hour, that would be a ridiculous amount of turns, but also puts a time limit on how long this monster is going to be a problem for your party, giving the party time to plan around when it is going to appear, and giving your party time to figure out what they want to do in advance, since it's not just always there, it's there during one set hour for an hour. There were other weaknesses to the Gashadokuro as well. I gave it a weakness to anti-magic because, in my mind, if it's a giant construct made of skeletons that are temporarily animated, I felt like it makes sense that you could cast anti-magic field on it and then it would temporarily dispel the Gashadokuro until the next day. Whether or not you actually want to include this in your Gashadokuro is your choice, but I felt like it made sense and then also gave players another way to temporarily deal with it, because otherwise it's just gonna return tomorrow anyway. So I thought it was a good, like, oh shit, we're in super duper trouble, let's cast anti-magic field and, like, be good for this night, but this is a problem that we're gonna have to deal with later. If the Gashadokuro is destroyed or incapacitated while the cause of its rage is still unaddressed, it forms a new body in 1d20 days, regaining all of its hit points and appearing where it last fell. Once the origin of its rage is addressed, the Gashadokuro will destroy itself. This is the main way that you're actually supposed to beat the Gashadokuro, and you can go about this various different ways. As explained previously, the Gashadokuro is formed due to a bunch of souls who have died during a war, or a bunch of souls who have died during famine. So, 2 options is dealing with maybe some kind of greedy king or emperor who sent his people into a battle that they couldn't win, or who left his people to starve to death. Killing the king, in turn, then kills the Gashadokuro. Or if your party's not about murder, another cool option is you can have them put the king in jail. Maybe the Gashadokuro will be okay with that. This truly just gives you, as a dungeon master, freedom to give your players a really big and scary plot hook with a very serious time limit that, since it's a siege monster, it's gonna hurt a lot of people, while also giving them a very concrete, set-in-stone way to deal with it if they don't just want to keep beating it up every night or casting anti-magic field on it every night. For its attacks, I gave the Gashadokuro a multi-attack. It's got a bite attack, it's got a crush attack. It's pretty mean. I gave it also some legendary actions, since, as I said, this is supposed to be a very high-level scary monster. It has Disrupt Life and Terrifying Presence, both of which nerfs your party significantly. Once again, as I explained, this is not something your party is supposed to fight. This is something your party is supposed to engage with your plot, and this is a good way to stop your murder hobo party in its tracks.
Though your entire party told them not to do it, your warlock shakes hands with the hag. The list of tasks she gave you is now done, so she happily gives you her reward. A skull on a stick, with eyes that burn with an almost comforting bright light. Your spellcaster takes the staff in hand, and leaves the hag's hut for the cold snow.
Now for this next one, I know I said that I would be focusing on mostly stuff from around the world outside of Europe, and I know I also said that I would be focusing on monsters. This is neither of them. For this next one, I need you to hear me out. For this item, we find ourselves in Russia looking at the folk/fairy tale Vasilisa the Beautiful. But Canis, you said this would be from around the world. I thought we were moving away from Europe. This is a fair point. I will counter by saying Russia makes up 11% of the Earth's total landmass, and most of Russia is located in Asia, along with the in all seriousness, we've discussed at the beginning of this video that it's only really one section of Europe getting all the love, while the rest of it kind of gets the boot. And I did fairly point out that Russia's a really big country, and it also has really fun and cool fairy tales and folklore that make great monsters and items for your players to have. Unfortunately, when we focus on one part of the world, that also includes areas that are just kind of seen as the undesirable or not as attractive parts of Europe, so I think it's still fair to give Russia a little bit of love. Besides, when I show you this item, you will be very excited to give it to your very edgy Death Domain cleric or your comically evil warlock. This fairy tale item is a very cool skull that shoots lasers out of its eyeballs. In the story, Vasilisa the Beautiful is sent by her cruel and abusive stepmother to the Baba Yaga for light. The girl goes and finishes the tasks that the Baba Yaga sets for her, and is gifted a skull with flames in its eyes that kills the girl's abusive family upon her returning back home. I decided to call this item the Skull of Fiery Vengeance. This staff is very rare, and it requires attunement from a cleric, sorcerer, wizard, or warlock. I didn't think that druids would really like a human skull that shoots fire, but if you really want to give it to your wildfire druid, be my guest, I'm not your boss. This staff is fashioned from blackened birchwood topped with a human skull. The eyes glow faintly in the dark, giving off a light radius of 30 feet around it. The skull's jaw occasionally chatters with soft laughter. While attuned to the staff, you gain the following benefits. It can be used as a spellcasting focus, and it gives you the ability Flames of Baba Yaga. The staff has 10 charges, and while holding it, you can expend one or more of the charges to cast one of the following spells from it, using its spell save DC. It can cast Firebolt for 1 charge, Burning Hand for 2 charges, Fireball for 3 charges, and Wall of Fire for 5 charges. The staff regains 1d6 expended charges daily. If you spend the last charge, roll a d20. On the 1, the skull lets out a terrible shriek as its embers die, becoming a non-magical skull and staff. It also has the ability Vengeful Gaze, and as a bonus action, you can command the skull to hover from the staff's tip and unleash a beam of flame. Choose a creature within 60 feet that you can see. The target must make a DC 16 dexterity saving throw, or take 4d8 fire damage on a failsave, or half as much on a success. The property can be used twice a day and returns after the next dawn. This is obviously based off of the events of the actual fairy tale, where the young girl goes back home, the skull then proceeds to shoot 2 fire beams, killing both her stepmom and her stepsister. So that's why I particularly gave it 2 instead of just once a day, or 3 times a day, or any other number. I just felt like 2 was fitting for the story, and it was a fun little callback. This skull is also sentient. It's sentient in the fairy tale, so I'm making it sentient in the item. It is a sentient, chaotic, neutral weapon with an intelligence of 16, a wisdom of 12, and a charisma of 18. It has a hearing and dark vision at a range of 60 feet. This weapon can understand Sylvan and Common. I added Sylvan because Baba Yagas are kind of like hags. And if you're going to give this item to a party, I think making it deal with a hag makes the most sense, but you can figure out another way to give this to your party. It can communicate with anyone who's wielded it telepathically. While you're attuned to it, the Skull of Fiery Vengeance also understands every language you know. Its personality is kind to the user. In the actual story, the Skull's at most a little pushy towards the girl, but not actively mean or malicious. After all, it doesn't hurt her, it hurts the people who hurt her. It is incredibly unkind, therefore, to those it deems a threat to its master. It is loyal and listens to commands, but will encourage its wielder to be unnecessarily cruel. It wishes to be merciless to anything it has perceived to wrong its wielder. Now, as a DM, this is where your choice comes in. If you want to make this item act on its own, / be a lot more mean and vicious, I think that's up to you. I think it would be fair, especially if the party member that gets this item is a little bit of a pushover, just like how the girl in the story was, that this item took matters into its hands sometimes. Especially with the Vengeful Gaze ability, I think it would be really cool if your party member was interacting with perhaps, I mean, we know most D&D party members have an unkind family member or a dead family member. So if they have an unkind family member, and perhaps your party member isn't willing to stand up to that family member, have the Skull do it. Add a little bit of tension, throw in a little bit of drama. But at the end of the day, this is your choice as a DM. I know if I was using this item, it would really depend on who I gave the item to before I decided how I fully want it to act, if that makes sense. Everyone who has played D&D has fought a red dragon or a giant, but there are plenty of cool and unique creatures the world has to offer that aren't often explored in fantasy media. I encourage you to do a deep dive in your own background and see if you can find any fun creatures that you'd like to adapt as part of your D&D game, and leave it in the comments so we can all share you some fun and unique stories. There are many folklore and fairy tales out there that are just ignored when they really shouldn't be. An extra bonus of using these monsters or items is the lack of metagaming, since most people at the table won't know what the creature is, making it both fun for the player and the DM, and then making it more fun for the table overall. At the end of the day, Dungeons & Dragons is about community. I think then, as a community, we should try to act on the issues that are so pervasive in the fantasy genre. Obviously, no individual can change what's happening on a blockbuster scale. No one's going to walk into Wizards of the Coast and demand, put more diversity in these books, nor will we see in D&D movies anything besides the more safe and iconic creatures like the owlbear and the slime cube. But that doesn't mean your tables have to be like that. While I don't think that every home game or every D&D podcast needs to be the perfect beacon of diversity, that is not what I'm trying to say at all. If you care about diversity, the first step starts with you, is what I'm trying to say. Yes, it's not going to change things on a giant scale. At most, you're going to convince 3 to 6 people that, hey, this thing from Aboriginal culture is really cool, and I would love if I saw it in more things. Or, hey, this yokai is pretty neat, and it was a really cool plot hook. Why is this not in the book? It's still going to change some people's minds, and they'll tell their friends, and hopefully their friends will tell their friends too, and maybe then something else could happen. Or maybe I'm being idealistic, and this is gonna only end up on, like, 3 people's tables, and those 3 people will hopefully think it's cool. Maybe they won't. I don't really care. Either way, I think that if you think an effort needs to be made, then make an effort. If you're happy with your dragons and your giants and your white wizards and your very, very white fantasy media and you're just content to consume that the way it is, I'm not gonna stop you. I can't stop you. I'm one guy on the internet. But I can say that media analysis is a powerful tool, and looking at media critically only improves your lives and doesn't really harm it in any way. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video and hopefully get some inspiration for your next session or character, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.